Okay, well, yeah, I'm not real sure what happened here, guys. Hello, YouTube. Today we are going to measure or show you what I did to measure this boat for throttle and steering cables. You know, maybe you just got your boat out of storage and you realize that your throttle cable is too stiff and it won't work, or your shifter cable won't work, or maybe you bought a boat that didn't have any. So I'm going to show you what I did to measure this boat that didn't have any. If you have your old ones, probably best to measure your old ones and order what you already had. But here's how I measured this boat for new cables. So I got my tape measure, and if you come around here on the side of the engine, you can see here is where your throttle cable is going to hook up, and here is where your shift cable is going to hook up. And then the barrels mount in these holes here, and then the cables go around. So I just measured from the midpoint between those, and I gave myself plenty of slack in front of the engine. So I got about 2 feet there. And then if I come over here, they go through this hole here, and I go there. That leaves me about 3 feet, so that's 5 feet total. And then from here forward to where my controls go, hold on, lost the microphone. And from here forward to where my controls go, I've got about another 5 feet. So by those measurements, I need a 10-foot cable. I ordered 11 just so I have a little extra. I can put a little loop back here if I need to. We'll just see how it goes. So the first thing you got to do is get your cables and determine which end is which. And it's pretty easy on this boat. The end that has the small metal eyelet is the part that goes in the control box, and the part with the big plastic one goes on the motor. This is for Mercury. I don't know all the different ones, but it should be pretty easy to figure out if you just order the cables for whatever motor you need. And these, again, like I said, are 11-foot cables. And I think I'm going to start at the control box side and run these cables through. So I'm just going to loop them gently over the console, and then I'm going to bring them back through this, and I'm going to run them together. Run them through this access hole here that lines up with where your controls go. And then I'm not going to use any of the stuff that's under here to secure them with, because it's all in unknown condition and I can't get the screws out. If you can, that's probably the best way to do it. Eventually I'm going to redo a lot more on this boat, but right now I'm just trying to get it running and test it and see if it's even worth messing with. So then we bring them around this corner, and we want to make sure this is a nice gentle bend, because you don't want to make these cables stiff. So we bring it around this corner and bring it over to the motor. And then once we get to the motor side, these cables are universal. Either one will do either throttle or shifter. So we've got the throttle is bottomed out, and it's going to go in the top hole here. So we're going to take our throttle cable and we're going to put it in the top hole, and then just take this nut off. There's a washer here. Based on the wear marks on it, I'm going to say it goes on the outside against the nut. And then we'll put the nut on and we'll tighten these down in just a second. And then we're going to take our second cable, and since it goes on the bottom, we're going to route it kind of under this one and put it in the lower hole. And then, just for the sake of keeping everything where it's at, we're going to clip this clip. And that's what actually holds those barrels in there. Now, these aren't adjusted, so we will still have to do that. But for right now, I just want to get them kind of installed so that they don't flop all over the place. Okay, so then now we'll go over here and we'll see what we have at the console. Okay, well, Yeah, I'm not real sure what happened here, guys. I mean, I guess I could have went with, well, 2 feet shorter. So I guess I could have done 9-foot cables, or maybe I should have just ordered 10s. I don't know. Anyway, we're just gonna have to make these work. Obviously they're way too long. So what I'll do, I guess I'm gonna have to come back here, and I have plenty of room in this compartment. So I'm just gonna take and put a nice gentle loop in them, just like that, and I'll put a zip tie on here so that they, I have some zip ties right here, so that they'll stay put right there. I would have rather have not done that, but I didn't realize that I was ordering them that much too. I knew I was going to be a little bit longer than I needed to be, but I didn't realize it was going to be quite that much longer than they needed to be. Well, if I can hold on to this. The zip tie here. I promise I know how to work one of these. I'm gonna put 2 zip ties on it. Okay, now we got some more zip ties. I'm gonna put 2 on this just to kind of make this loop nice and gentle so it doesn't get that sharp edge in it. We just don't want them to cause any extra resistance in using the throttle and whatnot. Now I made them too short. And then we can adjust this just by pulling as much as we need out to get them hooked up. Okay, so now, if you remember when I replaced the ignition switch, I left the bottom cover off because I knew I was going to have to put these cables on. So the next thing I need to do is I'm going to turn the motor so I can see it, and then one of these is going to move. So that one moves the shifter. If you look over there, you can see the shifter moving. And it's not going in and out of gear, it's just moving the slop in the middle. And then this one is going to move the throttle. As you can see, it's moving the throttle. So then we also know that if we move this lever here, if you can see this lever here is moving, so we know that's the throttle. So our shorter cable is the throttle one, and it's going to go on top, so we'll put the shifter cable in first. And they just fit down in this little hole right here in the back. So you feed them through here, push it down in that hole, and then if you look here, it's just got this little piece that comes over the side, and then on the back of it, come around to this side. If you look right here on the back of it, it's got this little barrel piece that fits inside the shifter cable itself. So you just pull this up and push it down right into that hole, and then now that cable's installed, and it takes an 8mm socket to tighten that nut up. This throttle control does. You know, if you have a different one, yours may be different, but so that's the shifter side all installed. And then I lost the other piece of the bracket here underneath the back. Let me get a screwdriver. Oh, apparently there's a hole it can fit in up top too. Okay. And then it's going to be the same thing for the throttle cable, and it goes on top. This wire, I can see the marks on it where it was between the cables before, so that's where I'm going to put it back. That goes in there like that. Bring that up, put the pin in, line it up at the hole, and I'm looking like we're going to have to adjust these cables. That's fine. So then, well, if we put it all the way back, it looks like it's pretty close to lined up. So then we just make sure this stays lined up, And if you look on the back of the cover here, there's a hole that accepts that, and it has a pass-through for the metal part of the cable here. And it's just going to slide right on the back. And it should sit right down on there. You shouldn't have to force it. And again, if you have a different type of control, yours may be a little different, but it should be pretty similar. You should, I mean, if you have some mechanical ability, I have confidence that you can figure this out. And you just tighten up the screws. And now the cables are all mounted in the control box. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to mount this throttle control, and it was never installed in this boat. So you come around the side here. I've already drilled a couple of 1/2-inch holes. These are just, 3/8 holes. These are just some well nuts. You can buy them at your local hardware store. They're rubber, and they've got a threaded insert in the bottom there. And these are 1/4 20 size. So we're just going to put those in the hole. And I've got all 3 of them for the 3 holes that are in this control box. And I'm just going to line them up, feed the bolt through, start it in there. I'm going to get all of them in before I tighten any of them so that I don't run into a problem. And then these big 1/4 20 stainless screws take a number 3 Phillips screwdriver. And hopefully, this boat actually, there's supposed to be a plywood reinforcement piece behind right here where this control box mounts, but it's not there anymore. It's rotted out. And that's something we can fix in the future. But for right now, again, we're just trying to make this thing run and see if it's even worth the effort that it's going to take to fix it up. I really like the style of the boat, or I wouldn't be going to this much effort. And now with all 3 of those tight, I mean, it's mounted in rubber, so it's going to move a little bit, but that's pretty secure. I don't think it's going to pull out. Our controls all work. It's moving stuff back there. I haven't adjusted anything yet, so we got to go back there and do that now. And those are going to take a 10mm wrench because you can't get a socket on the shifter one. Okay, so then to adjust these, so actually looking pretty good. You just take this off, and so our throttle is off and our throttle is closed. So we should be able to slide this in and slide this on all at the same time with the throttle closed. That one fit pretty good. And these are nylock nuts, so they shouldn't back off, and I don't want to, I'm going to just tighten these down enough to where I can feel resistance, but I can spin that little fiber washer that's there. There is some rotation on this, and we don't want to put in undue stress on these cables. And then for the shifter one, we're going to do basically the same thing. And again, it's in neutral still, so that's kind of the forward gear, and that should be reverse. So kind of in the middle of that is neutral, which is pretty close to where it was. It's kind of maybe a little bit. I'm gonna try something. This is probably not the proper procedure, but I'm gonna do it anyway because I feel better about it. I'm gonna go ahead and throw the shifter in forward. So it's all the way in forward. Now it's moving the throttle, so it should be fully engaged in gear. And so that means that should be in gear, and we're in gear. So I'm going to go to reverse. and I just want to go far enough that it starts to move the throttle, because it'll go into gear first, and then once it starts to move the throttle, it should be fully in gear. And so now we're back here, and we're fully in gear. So I'm gonna say, I mean, barring running it and checking it go into gear while it's running, I'm gonna call that good on the adjustment. I'm sure there's a more proper way to adjust them, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna work out just fine. And then you tighten your last bolt down. And again, I just want to feel some pressure on the fiber washer, but still be able to turn it. This one doesn't have really any rotation, but I still feel like that's going to be the best plan. As you can see, this one's already cracked, so we might be replacing that in the future, but for right now, that's as far as we're going to go. So funny story, I just posted this video and realized that I didn't actually show how you would adjust these if you needed to. So if you needed to adjust these, you would take this clip off, and then you would pull this out of the barrel here, or the barrel out, and then you can just spin this threaded barrel, and as you can see, it's moving down the rod here. And then if we were to put this back in now, with the throttle control at idle, we're off the idle stop right here. So now we know that that's no longer in adjustment. So to fix that, we pull it back out and we spin this back to where it was. And with that at the idle stop there, this just slides nice and easy. Okay, it doesn't. One more. Now it slides nice and easy down in there. That stays on the stop. That's still in neutral. I mean, I didn't go over there and move it, so. And then now we can push these in, flip this lever back up, and clip it into place. And that's how you would adjust them if you needed to. These, I got lucky. They lined up. I didn't have to do that. Yeah, so, I mean, that's it. That's replacing the throttle and the shift cables on an outboard engine. This one happens to be a 70 horsepower Mercury. It's a 88 model. I don't know. It's got a Mercury control box. I don't know what model. I mean, it's the one that has the lever for the high idle speed. I've never had one that was this style before. I don't know what it is, so I didn't. This is just kind of my process for how I went about changing the cables on this. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that should, if this is a problem that you're having and it's keeping you from getting on the water, I mean, cables were cheap. Order a couple on Amazon and get yourself back out on the water, do some fishing or whatever. Talk to you guys soon.